game slate. We'll see if that 8-game holds up throughout the course of the next hour due to some weather concerns right now in Chicago. But I'm Chris Spags, joined today by my pal, the baseball savant, Jake Hari. How are you doing, Jake?
I'm doing well, man. I wish it wasn't so rainy in Chicago. Might be a little bit easier of a slate, but I guess it's gonna be difficult for everyone. So can't complain. Hopefully, we figure some stuff out here on the fly. And I always like these 7, 8 gamers, so I'm excited to talk about it nonetheless.
Yeah, we will have a lot of fun talking about it, I'm sure, throughout the hour. Mostly a lot of self-flagellation. We're going to be really hating ourselves throughout the course of this hour as we come down to the important Zach Greinke decision. But, there's one decision that's much easier for you guys at home to make right now, and that is the choice that you can make to play rake-free daily fantasy sports, courtesy of our partners at Fantasy Draft. So go right now, play your rake-free daily fantasy at fantasydraft.com. Play all your favorite contests rake-free on there, where 100% of the entry fees are paid to contest winners. For a limited time, Fantasy Draft is offering a free 7-day trial on your first $1,000 in rake-free entries. So go right now to fantasydraft.com and use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, to claim your free 7-day trial. And thank you to Fantasy Draft for sponsoring the show. Jake, what is the big perk? It's pretty obvious for most people, I'm going to assume. What is the big perk of going to Fantasy Draft and getting that rake-free daily fantasy in your life?
Yeah, well, we've got some big news to wait on actually right now that the White Sox game got postponed. But going back to Fantasy Draft, so obviously people talk about rake and it's thrown around. You could lose up to 30% of your bankroll at a time, over time, due to rake. So getting into these rake-free contests is huge. Actually, Fantasy Cruncher does a really good job, Fantasy Draft does a really good job of putting a little graphic in your My Account page where you can actually see how much money you're saving over time. So I've played a few times since we've become partners on Fantasy Draft. I think I'm up to like 50 or 60 bucks, and not playing a ton of volume. So it's absolutely massive. You will see it day to day. You'll definitely see it over the long term. If you're playing NFL, if you're trying to build your bankroll, I mean, there's no better contest than rake-free contests, at least ones that we're seeing right now. So you got to get over there and play on Fantasy Draft.
Yeah, so go to fantasydraft.com right now and use that promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, to get that free 7-day trial there. Your first $1,000 in entries will be rake-free. And thank you to Fantasy Draft for sponsoring Live Before Lock and helping us keep the lights on. So go support them. They do nice things for us. All right, Jake, so this game's postponed. So we'll keep an update, I guess, on the ownership and keep our eyes towards that and see how we're going to shake out there. But I assume same thing for me. So I already took this game out of my crunches so far because I just didn't want to do it and have to deal with it during the show. I'm just going to Lucchesi. I'm probably going to be way over the field on Lucchesi. I assume that's a popular thought process. And I'm actually hoping I get some more raise and crunches I get coming up because I think it is a pretty decent leverage spot for them as well. But are you going to go with wherever Lucchesi ends up? Because you got to assume we're going to be in the neighborhood of 50% on most sites now.
Yeah, I think I will be still going to Lucchesi. Maybe not as much over on DraftKings, but like on FanDuel now, it becomes the clear best play. He's cheap on FanDuel as well. So like DraftKings and Fantasy Draft, he's pretty expensive. And I think you don't need to necessarily leverage against him. It's not a great lineup that the Rays put out here. There still are some strikeouts and all that, and it's a good park and a sub-4 implied total. So there's definitely a ton of reasons to play Lucchesi, but I'm going to experiment with like double punting pitchers a lot tonight and just playing all the expensive bats because I still think even if the pitching slate is bad, people tend to pay up more for pitching, at least one of their spots. So I'm going to see if I can get into this mid-tier and this really low tier. I know there's not a lot of great options, but I don't think I'm going to get up to 50% if he's going to be there, and I think he very well could be.
Yeah, so I don't mind the spot for him. I guess one of the reasons leverage jumps out to me is because this lineup for Tampa Bay, even though, as you mentioned, there are some strikeouts there. Well, I guess the numbers are kind of skewed by having Diego Castillo in the lineup, but still on the year, a 26.2% K rate versus left-hand pitching. But this lineup today, so their first six hitters are all above a 100 WRC plus. Rousseau's been pretty good in a limited sample size as well. Like, I think it's actually a decent lineup going against. I mean, Kiermaier and Adames down to the bottom. They're not guys who've done a lot of damage versus lefties. But I think if Lucchesi is going to be as highly owned as he is everywhere, I do want a little bit of raise despite that low team total. And as you mentioned, the park is going to benefit pitching as well. I just think they're a good hitting team. And with this much ownership on Lucchesi, I feel like you have to have a little bit going the other way.
Yeah, I think you certainly could with like Aguilar. But now the question is, at least on DraftKings, who do you pay down for? Like, why would you need to pay down in your hitters if you're not playing Lucchesi you can basically just play whoever you want, So unless you're going to Erod and just like pure pivoting off of Lucchesi or someone else in this range, Desclafani, whoever it is, like I just don't see the need to really get to these super cheap Tampa bats either, especially with the low implied total against.
Okay, that's fair. I think I'm viewing it more in terms of like at this point, I think we're gonna have some weird lineups in the mix, and I think if you do have, even if you left some money on the table there, or if you went with like an Erod and I mean Zach Plesac, not a guy I'm excited about, but just use him as an example because of the price point, or Desclafani too, who has strikeout upside. Like I think if you go to some sort of pivot of two higher price pitchers, that's just going to be a construction that people don't have today. Because I assume we're going to be seeing a lot more of the Austin Pruitts out there, who I don't mind. Brock Stewart, I think, is the other guy who people have talked about throughout the day, who's also doesn't look too bad against Texas. Like, I just think it's at least one way to look slightly different, even though it may not be an approach you want in a ton of lineups.
No, I think that's a perfectly fine option. And you mentioned using maybe less salary than you normally would. Do you have a magic number in your head of salary left over that you would be at least willing to leave on the table on a night like tonight? I mean, I usually don't use a salary minimum when I'm in Fantasy Cruncher, but like if you were using one tonight, where do you think that would be at?
So I'm usually at 1,000 as my cap, like so I'll 4,900 minimum for me, and I think today like probably another 500 on that. I think just to get some different looks in there, because like as it is right now, you're not going to get, like let's say Coors doesn't work and you're not going to get any sort of like Cincinnati lineups and Tampa Bay if Lucchesi blows up. Like there's some ways there where the higher priced bats maybe don't work, and I think that just from a tournament perspective, if I were playing as many lineups as you were, even for the max 20s that I do, like I'm still probably going to try to have a few different looks there, because I just like I believe in the high price batting on the slate, but it wouldn't shock me if like Cincinnati's full 5-man stack went off, or if like let's say the guy in there, Josh Rojas for Arizona, like he's actually a pretty good power hitter in the minors, at over 200 ISO. Let's say he's what drives the majority of the production for Arizona, and you can't even play him on I think on all the sites today. And then you have like a Pittsburgh stack or like Tampa Bay or whatever going off. There's a very realistic possibility to me that you have like a lot of scoring going to these teams that people just aren't going to be on at all.
Yeah, I mean, so it's going to take the ownership basically off of like anything for Tampa Bay. The Angels become less necessary, but kind of more appealing to get to in case they do have that crazy outlier performance. Because people will play Trout and Ohtani, and some people will play Aguilar, but like there's not a real reason to spend down, so it's going to push more ownership up to either Lucchesi or more likely these super expensive bats. So I was even thinking more like 2K 2,500, especially if you're 5-man stacking one of these cheap teams. You're probably just not going to be able to get up to the salary cap or even close to it, at least on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think if anything, this just seems like a day where it's time to get weird with your construction. Like you mentioned, using two cheap pitchers. I think for me, not that it's ever crazy to use two higher price pitchers, but I think in terms of this lineup construction for the slate, I think that's one approach that I would find interesting. And then just leaving money on the table. I think 2K to 2,500 is fair. I think I went a little more conservative with mine just because I felt naked if I went to 2K. But yeah, 2K probably does seem about right, about double what I would normally leave on the table. I think that seems fair. And I think just be willing to get weird with the crunches and the looks that you're bringing to things, because people aren't going to be on quite a few of these teams today, because it's just going to be a sort of straightforward construction for most people.
Right. You're not going to be comfortable hand building lineups today, at least with your pitcher spots, but just know that everyone else is going to be in that same boat. So maybe more appealing, like the one pitcher sites look appealing tonight, even if I don't think that that's my favorite place to play. Like just locking in Lucchesi on like a FanDuel or something like that, it just seems easier because he's a decent option, he's cheap and all that. Whereas on DraftKings and Fantasy Draft, it is really difficult to try to pick two pitchers you're comfortable with. But that's what we're going to try to do.
Yeah, that is the name of the game here. And and I think overall, just to sum up my view on it, like I'm going to have a bunch of Lucchesi, but I think on the lineups where I don't have him, I think I'll be probably getting extra weird with it, just because it just feels like that's it. When everything starts to break around you, we got to try to capitalize with the blood on the streets, Jake. And I think that's what today's day is going to be all about. Let's talk about some of the slightly cheaper pitchers in there because we do have some guys who are going to be a little more affordable there. Mitch Keller is a guy who Adam on Ship My Money talked about in the deeper dive, having some interest in. I also talked about him in the four corners today because I think he does have strikeout ability and he's just been a little bit unlucky in what he's received so far in the majors, just getting blasted across the board. Only faced 61 batters so far in MLB, but has looked really bad with them with a 2.3 whip and a 382 batting average allowed so far, which one would think has to improve at some point. But which of these guys would you be the most willing to go to, I guess, or which do you have the most interest in out of these, let's say, Erod down to Mitch Keller tier?
Ooh, it's really, really ugly. I guess, so Erod, so including Erod, Plesac, Desclafani. Desclafani's pretty interesting, actually, at 9,600. If you can stomach that price, he's a guy who you could pivot off of Lucchesi with on DraftKings and Fantasy Draft because he's obviously got real bad issues with lefties. The lefties in the lineup are Parra, Asdrubal Cabrera, Matt Adams you're worried about, Eaton not a big power guy. So you could see Desclafani having a really good start here against a team with a bunch of righties, pitcher spot of course, and more importantly, no Juan Soto. So that's huge for a guy like Desclafani. He's probably the guy I'm most interested in, but really it's pretty rough in this range. That's why the double punt pitching duo is pretty appealing to me tonight.
Yeah, DeSclafani, you mentioned the issues with lefties. He's given up a 271 ISO to that side of the plate going back to last year, along with a 1.6 whip and a 5.9 xFIP. But if he can survive the lefties versus righties, has been really good with a 1.1 whip, as well as a 25% K rate. So I could certainly see the logic of DeSclafani. Again, another guy who doesn't project well on a slate chock full of them. There's, I think, not a single pitcher we have now who projects for the normal 2x value threshold we're trying to find out there. But yeah, I could see the logic there. And really the lefties are worried about are Matt Adams, who does offer up a 27% K rate as well. And you mentioned Cabrera, just a league average strikeout guy. And the lefties in this lineup today are not the most intimidating, even if they don't get struck out. So I could agree with you on DeSclafani. I'll give the case, I guess, let's give a theoretical case for Erod because I think he is worth mentioning just because he is high priced for a reason. And he hasn't been bad this year in terms of giving up power. I mean, going back to last year, giving up just the 149 ISO. Strikeout rate, not as high as you'd want to see from him with a 23.5% K rate, and Cleveland can hang in there. But 13% ownership, I mean, do you feel like that's perhaps worth matching the field on at least or just getting a taste?
Yeah, much more interested in Erod than I was this morning when I thought we were going to have Greinke. He's, when you're just looking at raw points, at this point of the slate, like you could see him being okay and getting you 20 on DraftKings here because he is a solid pitcher. He can handle righties, so the bunch of righties in the lineup here aren't all that concerning. He doesn't have a great K rate or anything like that, but he is a good pitcher, and you can't really say that for a lot of these other guys in this range. So Erod's fine. He doesn't grade out as a good value for us, and you can see why with the 5.5 implied total that Alex has against him. Never fun for a 10-3 pitcher, but I think he's a guy that is becoming more necessary, especially if you're trying to get off of Lucchesi.
Yeah, I mean, not a guy who pitches terribly deep into games either, just pitching a little bit over 5 and a third innings, I guess would be the way that breaks down. So not somebody you're going to see in there terribly deep, but I would agree. I think he just kind of offers a little bit of potential there where I wouldn't hate matching the field on him. I think I'll probably end up close to it just to try to find somebody else who is a pivot at that price point to Lucchesi. Any Zach Plesac at all for you? Because he's actually done a good job limiting damage overall, and he's pitching deeper into games than Erod as well. Just giving up a 1.2 whip, a 5.1 xFIP, which seems like there may be worse things to come around the corner for him. And he's going against the Red Sox too, which is certainly not a spot where you want to be. For them going against the right-hand pitching team, they've been just obliterating that on the year, 112 WRC plus, as well as a 197 ISO. And he interested all in Plesac at what looks like 1% ownership. So on this short slate, he's still a guy that nobody's going to be on.
The only appeal is the 1% ownership. So
yeah.
I don't know. Like I might get over the field on Plesac and get him a couple times at a 150 just for the sake of being different. But he's not someone I want to make a big stand on. One of the worst value grade pitchers on the slate. Cease was the worst of these upper tier guys. Now it is actually it is Plesac now, just because very low strikeout opportunity here against Boston. High implied total, and I'm not convinced he's good. You mentioned the xFIP well over 5 so far this season, so maybe getting a little bit lucky as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I could be one of those guys. I think, well, at least what jumps out to me is that he could be one of those guys who just kind of defies where you would expect his power to be given up more, like just like a Wade Miley type. I guess would be the best comparison that jumps to mind, because there is a skill to being able to keep the ball down and keep the ball in play, and a low BABIP though, just a 230 BABIP on the year, and he has given up some power overall, a 189 ISO versus everybody, 292 batters faced, so. Could be due to regress the most out of everybody, but I don't hate taking a stab at him again because of that 1% ownership. And it's a thought, I guess, nothing else. Anybody else, I guess, in this mid tier, Jake, because Mitch Keller is a guy who I'm intrigued by, and you don't seem like you took the bait on that one, but he's coming up a little bit more with our projections now. Any Mitch Keller at all for you?
No, I don't mind Keller. Just $8,400 pitcher. I'm very interested to see this ownership update that I'm assuming is coming in the matter of a couple minutes here. Just because of all the news, it probably didn't make sense to run it earlier in the day. But I would think Keller's ownership is going to come up a little bit. On the last update, let's see where he was at. Keller was at just under 10%. So even if he's like 15 or somewhere in there, I think it makes sense to take a risk on this slate. The deeper dive guys mentioned the higher strikeout rates for some of these guys lower in the order for the Angels. You still got Trout and Ohtani and guys you're worried about at the top, but Upton strikes out a lot. Pujols doesn't, but Tice, Rengifo, and Stassi are strikeout targets. So for a guy that has a 25% K rate, I know he doesn't grade out particularly well, but he's just like everyone else on this slate, and he's super talented.
Yeah, getting an Angels team who in their actual lineup today is 24% K rate versus right-hand pitching, which is a bit higher than the 19% they've had versus righties on the year. Because you have guys like Tovar in there and Stassi who are going to drive that up, as well as Matt Tice. Some guys in that lineup today are not quite elite strikeout, or at least elite strikeout avoiders. As Jake mentioned, Upton too, striking at a 28% clip, even though he does bring much better numbers versus a righty than he does versus a lefty, which is one thing I think people miss about Upton. He's terrible versus lefties, but versus righties is actually quite a good hitter and has been for an extended period of time. So yeah, I think there's some risk for Keller, but I think the strikeouts have been there and they should continue to be there. And he just, like, you can't give up a 382 batting average this long when he's like a top pitching prospect. That seems unlikely for him to be that bad for an extended period of time.
Yeah, for sure. So that's going to come down. You're going to need a little bit of luck against this Angels team because it's not like they strike out a ton or anything. But if he's going to go relatively overlooked and he's cheaper than Erod, he's cheaper than Desclafani. Adam made a good case for him this morning and today on the deeper dive. So I don't mind the call with Keller here for 8,400.
Yep, and also we just got a projection update, but not an ownership update yet. Yeah, just FYI, in case anybody out there is a premium member. And if you're not a premium member and you want to get all these updates, because, boy, you are going to want that. We'll give you guys some taste of the ownership as we get that. But for the projections, you just plug right into Fantasy Cruncher. You can use that promo code Live Before Lock. Graph off your first month of Awesome Plus. Get all the player projections, all the ownership projections, which, again, are going to be really key for this slate in particular, as well as the deep dive column, the lineup builder, the top stacks tool, a million different things that'll help you make better MLB DFS lineups every day. So use that promo code Live Before Lock for half off your first month of Awesome Plus. All right, should we go down to the relief guys, or is there anybody else we should hit? I guess anybody in the Coors game that you're going to think about here at pitching?
No, I posed that question to Adam today on the strategy show. He kind of laughed me off, and I think I'm more where he's at now. I was thinking possibly you could make a case for Lambert, but man, this implied total here for the Diamondbacks 7.7 Alex has him at. It's just absurd to take a $5,700 pitcher. So I don't think that you need to get to either of these guys. What about you?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I actually feel the same way, where I think you can make a case of going to Peter Lambert here, because he's actually not been getting hit quite as hard as it seems. Like his 5.7% barreled ball rate's not that bad. 28.7% fly ball rate, also not that bad. Certainly not a good pitcher, but I could have seen the thought process there with this also being kind of a weaker Arizona lineup with no David Peralta in there. I am worried, though. Like, Josh Rojas, I think, is actually going to be a pretty good play in there. And it bums me out because I think that kind of it doesn't kill my Arizona stack interest, but, like, it's going to really piss me off if I have Arizona stacks and Josh Rojas has the big day, because he is bringing lefty power against Lambert. Lambert giving up a 286 ISO to lefty batters so far. And Rojas has had pretty good power pretty much every minor league stint he's had so far. And that freaks me out because there really aren't a lot of good lefty power bats in this lineup now.
Yeah, kind of a weird lineup here for the Diamondbacks and Coors, and now it's frustrating that you can't stack up Rojas. So you already have the pitcher spot. It's just 7 spots remaining to stack up. Makes it harder to get unique with your stack rather than some other teams who have 9 tonight. That those 2 extra spots do make a huge difference just in terms of getting differentiation.
Yeah, so I still think Lambert's a fine play, but I think it's a tougher situation for that side of the equation for me overall. But I guess if I had to choose between the two, yeah, oh boy, that really is like choosing between the worst of the worst on this terrible slate already. I guess I would favor Kelly because at least he kind of gets some strikeouts and theoretically does a good job keeping his whip down. He's got a 1.3 whip compared to a 1.6, but he's also been benefiting from being in Arizona too. So like, I really don't feel comfortable with either pitcher. Shocking, I know.
Yeah. On a slate of terrible pitching, you kind of have to consider everyone, but I think these guys don't really need to be talked about all that much.
All right, so how about the dumpster diving here? We got Brock Stewart. All right, yeah, let's just do the relief guys. We got Brock Stewart as a long reliever, or expected long reliever, going against Texas for Toronto. And he's a guy who I think they talked about at some length on the deeper dive right before us. And he's been not terrible. I mean, he's getting good soft contact, getting okay strikeouts. It's really all relative, I guess, but he's not terrible. He projects okay. Then we also have Austin Pruitt going for Tampa Bay against San Diego's projected long reliever there. He also projects, I think, the best out of all of them, has had better strikeouts than the other guys, 17.7% K rate. Also got Nestor Cortez expected to be going for the Yankees today as the projected long reliever there, going against Baltimore. I think I would favor Cortez on a matchup and overall talent basis, but I don't think I'm getting him with our current projections right now. So which of these 3 guys would you feel? And maybe if there's anybody else I'm missing in that price tier.
No, you're not missing anyone. Trust me, I've looked. So Pruitt, I'm just going with the projections on this one. Like, they're all equally not great. I just think Pruitt might be able to go a few innings, and hopefully you get well, okay, so first of all, we don't know necessarily whether it's going to be Brock Stewart or Godley. There's some discussion about whether or not it's going to be one or, both of those guys. So I don't know. If Stewart projected a ton better, I would have said, okay, I'll take that risk and hope that Stewart gets a few innings here. But with him, with us not knowing, and them, they were about the same ownership earlier today when we had them in the ownership projections. I think I'm just going to go to more Pruitt here, decent park, and you're hoping he pitches innings 3, 4, and 5 and gives you a chance for a win and picks up a couple strikeouts along the way. And it's not really about the pitching here anyways. It's about what they allow you to get in the rest of your lineup. So I'm taking Pruitt. He's kind of my guy tonight. Very possibly my highest exposed pitcher as I just go crazy with all the expensive bats. What about you?
Yeah, Pruitt would also be my guy, and I feel like that kind of like it just seems too obvious amongst the 3, 4K-ish guys. And what was like, I do want to get more Cortez in there. I don't think actually is he in our projection base right now? Because
he's in there, yeah.
Okay,
he's got,
but not projecting too well though.
No,
okay.
A little bit worse than Stewart actually.
Yeah, that's surprising to me, huh?
Did you see? Did you see Ty Black's projection?
Yeah, he's negative, right?
I've never seen that.
Yeah, so he actually, I wouldn't play him in this spot against the Yankees, but like he wasn't that bad last year. Like he pitched a pretty decent amount. Let me just pull up the numbers real fast. But going back to last year, he faced 550 batters almost, and he had a 1.8% on run rate and a 4.4 xFIP and a 120 ISO allowed. But then this year he's been getting just obliterated by everybody with a 2.8 whip, not missing bats at all with a 4% swing strike rate, also only getting an 8% K rate. So like, I just don't think he's quite as bad as he's been this year. So a guy I wouldn't hate the concept of, but really hard to tout a negative projection.
Yeah, man. I don't, maybe we've had that this season, but usually haven't had to look that deep into the projections to see which pitchers I'm going to play. So there are a handful of them down there with, sub 6.0 projections on DK, which is pretty hard to do if you are, alive.
Yeah, Ty Black he projects as a negative 0.03 value. So if you want to lose 0.03 on the slate, I guess that would be in terms of your value relative to your salary. That is something. So I don't know. I could see the logic in Black just because going back to that sample size, he hasn't been this bad in a much longer sample last year, but But that high run total, I mean, now we're talking Coors run total for the Yankees there with 7.5 implied runs for them, actually higher than Colorado and Coors, at least on the ones that I'm using. So tough to trust Ty Black there, even though he may not be as bad as it seems.
Yeah. All right. Let me see if we can get ownership. Because what are we? Half hour from lock.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tag Tom and Eddie and see. Maybe they're not watching.
I'm sure that'll be coming soon. Of course, if you want to get the ownership the second that we do, use that promo code live before lock for half off your first month of Osmo Plus. And speaking of painful things like the slate has been, it's time to go to the dong picks, which
Oh boy.
Yeah, real fun on Friday with JD Martinez, my guy on Thursday, who I really liked. Then he had to double dong on Friday just to really rub it in my face that I'm getting bad beat after bad beat after bad beat with these ones lately.
Yeah. No kidding. Did you say JD?
Yeah, JD on Friday had a double dong.
I think I picked him on Saturday. So there we go. You did us both wrong.
Got to make sure nobody got it yesterday. No Eugenio. Yeah, you had him yesterday. You had that weekend of many Josh shows. You probably lost all concept of time.
Dude, yeah, I mean, I didn't have a weekend as far as like a day off of doing shows, so I'm still going, and it's not gonna stop, people. So you're gonna see a lot of me, Spags, Josh. You're gonna see a lot of us the next few weeks. It'll be a lot of Josh and myself especially because you're gonna be gone. So hopefully they'll like that. I'm not exactly sure, but we'll see.
Next week we're all everywhere without Laffy, because Laffy really does hold down so many different shows. But even this week I got to do an early bird last week with EMAC, which was fun. That's the first time I got to do that. But we are down to replacement players here. It's been a weather delay here at Osmo.
Yeah,
just swapping people in left and right.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so nobody got a home run over the weekend, so that's a positive. That's one thing I have in my feather, or one feather in my cap for not doing that. I'm gonna go first, and I can't go to Coors, so that's gonna be a little bit of a tough one with these options now. And also the guy that I like the most, I don't know if he's in the lineup right now for Pittsburgh, so that's a tough one. I don't want to let you go first, because I feel like you're gonna pick whoever is really good. You know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna go Mike Trout.
Mike Trout. All right, good pick.
I believe in Mitch Keller still, but I'm just going to take a good hitter on a day where everything is up in the air.
Yeah, okay. I'm going chalkier than that, I think. Gleyber Torres. I don't think I ever get him right, but I keep picking him. And
let's go back to Gio again. He had another home run in the first half of the games today.
It's going to be Urshela double dong, yeah, I'm sure. But I'll take Gleyber this time. I just choose my Yankees and just shuffle through them, and hopefully I grab a couple on the way through.
That has been the right approach recently. So there we go. We'll update you guys if Josh and EMAC and Chris Randone get their picks in, of course, throughout the next hour. But if not, I'm sure you could take those ones to the bank because, actually, Jake's you can take to the bank because Jake's been doing well. I'm just feel like I'm running bad with this home run thing. Like last year, we had our hot runs, and I haven't had an extremely long cold streak. It's just not enough success. Hurts a little to lose like that.
Yeah, that's never fun. I had a terrible stretch. I don't think I got my first one until the end of April, and then Josh had that awful stretch. EMAC really hasn't had a bad stretch, and that's what kind of carries you. As long as you get one a week or so, and you're making picks basically every day, you're going to be doing okay. So not to take away from what EMAC's doing because he's crushing us. But
yeah, I had a tough June, it looks like. So that explains a little more because I've been getting one a week, and it's still been not good. But that June run, I don't know what happened in the middle of June to the end of June, but it was a real bad stretch for your boy Specs. Got nothing from June 12th on through until July 1st.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's fun to do this every day. It's really it's the one segment of the show where it's just hey, Spags, you want to get kicked in the throat for a second and feel bad about yourself and the thing that you've dedicated your career to for the last year and a half.
Now Josh is making fun of your Trout pick. You should make fun of my Gleyber pick. I mean, the Yankees have a 14 implied total here, so he said, haha, Trout, I'll take Barry Bonds.
EMAC's taking Aaron Judge. Nobody's giving old EMAC any crap, but whatever, man. It's fine. I get it. Jake and I were both in first place last year, so I get, technically we are sharing the crown of dong still until it's officially bequeathed to EMAC.
We'll see. If I would have taken Urshela or Jordan Alvarez on Saturday, I'd be right back in it.
Jordan, another guy on Friday, did nothing against stupid Dylan Bundy, and then on Saturday he's king shit again. It's just been one of those weeks.
We just got ownership, by the way. People are asking in chat, so if you're a premium member, Go check that out if you're not a premium member. Of course, become a premium member. Promo code live before lock.
All right. Well, let's see if Josh actually makes a pick or if he's just as mean to mine. But let's see if the ownership changed, or let's see if the ownership changed at all. I'm sure it's completely the same. All right.
Let's see here. So, wow. Okay.
Look at Austin Pruitt.
Yeah.
Come on.
So, Pruitt, not a secret at all, obviously. But I was thinking more like 15, 20% ownership. He's almost the chalkiest pitcher on the slate. I mean, he's a little bit behind Lucchesi, but wow, at least on DraftKings, he is getting a lot of attention, I think, rightfully so. So I almost want to retract a few things that I said. I just figured these guys would all be around the same ownership. If Pruitt's going to be, he projects better than these other 4K pitchers, but if he's going to be way more owned than them too, like, I don't know, my ownership's going to be more even than anything. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to get to 32% Austin Pruitt at 32, whereas I was getting like 60% earlier.
Yeah, that's a lot of Austin Pruitt out there. I mean, I still don't mind him, I guess. Like, I feel like now that's a number to match, unless you, well, what do you think about it? Because I feel like you have a better approach with these sort of things. Like, my instinct would be that now you probably would want to get more of a mix of that Cortez Stewart tier and just like have that be your ownership for Pruitt. But how are you going to try to handle it?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to have more of a mix now. Like, if he was at 20% and let's say Stewart was at 15 or 12%, it would have been more Pruitt than anything. But now that there's a big gap between their ownerships, I mean, Stewart's still, 4/5 of what Pruitt is right now. Where's Cortez at? Is he just going? Actually, we don't have Cortez in there. So if we get Cortez in there, that would be great. I'm assuming he might take a little bit of ownership away from both of those guys, but he's kind of the third guy anyways for me. So not as interested in Cortez. I'm still going to have a bunch of both Stewart and Pruitt, but it's going to be closer now that I see this ownership.
Yeah, so I'm glad we're on the same page with that, because that just seems to be the move for me. Because look, I think any of these guys, like we did talk about Pruitt as a guy who we like the most, but ultimately I really don't feel that strongly about it. So I'm pretty okay just getting a split of those guys and hoping one of them shakes free. And I do think too, with that much ownership now going to Pruitt, like I think that does lend a little credence to my my tournament thought of just going with a little more higher price guys, and maybe Parado is the cheapest one you go to. I think that's, even though Parado is certainly not a guy I would be excited to have. I do think at least he's at a price point that's going to be different, and maybe if he establishes more of a floor than these guys, then that could be something. But oof.
Yeah, Parado looking better and better. Just anyone that's not getting ownership looks good. It's crazy. Man, some bad pitchers getting a lot of ownership right now, and guys that aren't even going to go like 4 innings.
Yeah, I really did not expect Pruitt to jump that much. Like jumping a bit, given the fact that, he's been talked about everywhere. He's going to be one of the better projecting ones overall. Like I certainly get that. But a jump to where he's just a few shades behind Lucchesi, that does not seem right. Does not seem healthy for anybody involved.
Yeah. Okay, we just got another ownership update within the last minute. So I'm guessing we've got Cortez in there now. Guys, these long relievers make it really difficult on Fantasy Cruncher, so that's why sometimes they don't get put in right away. We still don't have Cortez, but if I had to guess, he's probably like 4 or 5% owned, and he's well below the rest of the guys. But that's why you're seeing sometimes these long relievers not getting in, is because Fantasy Cruncher doesn't have them listed, and we go off Fantasy Cruncher, of course, because we love Fantasy Cruncher.
Yeah, and also, I mean, like Brock Stewart, I think has been cited in a lot of spots, but as you mentioned earlier, we still don't know for sure if he'll be getting the one actually gets that long relief there, since Zach Godley is in the mix now for them, and that could be a spot that also could blow up just from a guy not getting run, which is the worst thing to have when you have a projected long reliever who you're not too excited about.
I did that with Yarbrough last year. I think it was Yarbrough. I had like 50% and just got a goose egg for like a $6,500 pitcher. That was fun. So
it's not my favorite part of the new opener revolution in Major League Baseball for sure.
It was cool for like 2 months when no one would play the guy, and they didn't realize that you had a better chance at the win and stuff. But now that maybe the love's gone even a little bit too far on these long relievers, as we're seeing tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and people probably, I know I saw somebody really mad about it. I feel like in the YouTube comments during, I think it was during the deeper dive, and they were like, yeah, like if guys like Adrian Hauser are going to break the slate or whatever,
Yeah.
like why even price him like that? And it's like, I mean, it usually doesn't happen that way. That's so 1 out of 100 where it is a skill to playing the right long reliever, but it's also like a pretty big pitfall to avoid sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, if you think, I don't know, any pitcher can get blown up. So if you've got a 4K pitcher that's getting a ton of ownership, it almost always makes sense to take some bats against him, regardless of his skill level. Like if they're going to be 40% owned. So Hauser was super highly owned. That makes it more fun for DFS, I think, when they misprice guys, because it just makes a lot of people gravitate towards a play just because of the price. And I played a ton of Hauser.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. I think it's not something in need of revolution, perhaps, but it does feel like this has been a tough run of these guys being in the mix and being sometimes important to have, and sometimes they just completely ruin a slate because you just don't know what's going on. But that's life in MLB DFS. Welcome to it, everybody. Let's go on to the top stacks and all that, Jake, because we do have some hitting on the slate, even though the pitching is the one that we want to talk about the most because it's been a baffling mentally pitching slate to navigate. Who is going to be your top stack on the day?
I think it's going to be the Yankees. I just play the Yankees every single day, it seems like, for the past month. Rarely have let me down. Ty Black, I think, is really, really bad. And the almost 8 implied total that Alex has going against him is pretty telling. They're affordable. They've got a decent chance of being the top value stack as well. You've got some cheaper pieces, Valera, Ford at the bottom. Not really worried about Ford, lefty. Romine can hit lefties, and he's under 4K. So I just love everything from price, the ownership, compared to these other teams at least. And then they're just a lot of really solid hitters, even if it's a watered-down lineup for them.
Yeah, and that team total has really gone up throughout the day too. I think it was just a hair over 7 earlier in the day. Now we're up to 7.5 on at least on the Fantasy Cruncher run total that I pull. So yeah, I think too, your point about Ford's pretty well founded. Even though it's only been 10 at bats in the majors, he's actually been really good versus lefties in that sample size. Got a 750 ISO, 500 on base percentage. So he's been doing his job in those spots so far. Obviously, those will trickle down a bit as we go, but he has shown an ability to hit lefties so far. And if Black is as bad as he is, and I still think the jury's out on that. It wouldn't shock me if it were like more of a Yankees mini stack move here than a full Yankee stack here. But I think still it's hard to imagine Black not giving him some production. And again, that negative projection for him doesn't occur often. So that's something to note.
Yeah, and I was just saying more like a lot of the times when you get lefty and at the bottom of the lineup, even with a team with the massive implied total like you have here for the Yankees, this guy will just go under-owned or like basically overlooked because people don't want to put him in their lineups because it's lefty. But if you're assuming the stack's going to go off and you're playing 4 other guys in the team, why not just throw in a low-owned guy that's probably going to he's going to get the platoon split at some point during the game. So just no issue stacking lefties, Gardner, Ford, whoever, against a bad lefty in Ty Black.
Yeah, and a brutal bullpen behind Black too.
Yeah.
So just Baltimore's bullpen, one of the worst on the year, and yeah, there's really no reason to avoid that situation at all. Also, Josh's home run pick is in for our sheet. Justin Smoke is who Josh is going with. So there you go. That's how he's trying to make up his ground to join Mike Trout, Gleyber Torres, and Aaron Judge in an all-star bracket of home run picks.
Yeah. Well, a couple more all-stars. I don't know that has Smoke been an all-star before? Maybe he has.
I feel like he's probably got one of those like nominal one-off ones where
Yeah.
he was like the only guy on a team who sucked.
He's been a decent player. Yeah.
Yeah, he probably got like one for the Blue Jays at some point, I would guess. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. There's an easy way to figure this out, but goddamn it, I won't do it. Let's go. So for me, the number one stack, actually, I think the Yankees right now, because our projections really do pop them up quite a bit. I'm getting the Yankees as mine as well. So number 2 for me, I guess. They've gotten less attractive throughout the day, but let's just talk about Pittsburgh because they're the one I want to get to the most, but the lineup isn't out still unless something's changed within the last few minutes. Nope, still no lineup out. So I want to get to Pittsburgh a lot because Suarez has been terrible versus righties. This is a quality switch hitting team for Pittsburgh. They haven't been great versus lefties on the year, but they also have a few guys in there who haven't been there for the majority of the year. Pablo Reyes, Elias Diaz, not always in there. Jose Osuna, most notably not always in there. I think they're in a better spot here going to get Suarez, who on the year has given up a 2 xFIP, a 2 WHIP, 7.9 xFIP, and also a 287 ISO to righties. And also not a bad 211 ISO to lefties either. So the rare lefty in there, Colin Moran, who I think actually might be the one we're waiting on if he's going to be in the lineup or not. This team should be able to hit Suarez. I really just haven't been impressed by Suarez. I thought he was going to be a better strikeout guy than he has been, and I'm been targeting against him. And it's been working out well. Are you going to get any Pittsburgh at all, Jake? Because they really don't occur with our projections much.
Yeah, so I'm having a tough time even getting them, even when upping randomness, just because there's just teams that are priced a little bit higher than them that project way better, like the Yankees. They've got a bunch of these mid-4 guys on DK, so it's hard for me to get to a ton of Pittsburgh here. I don't mind going to Pittsburgh as an idea, just going against Suarez. Where was he at on our last update? 15%. So he's actually come down. He was higher earlier in the day. So some people have shifted their focus to other guys. So not as appealing as a leverage stack. But if Ozuna's in there, that makes him, I think, a little bit more appealing. That's the guy you're waiting on, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's questionable, but apparently people in the chat were saying that it might be Colin Moran who's the one they're waiting on. But yeah, I mean, Ozuna to me just jumps out. He's been hitting the ball really well in the year. He has a 122 WRC plus versus lefties as well as a 253 ISO. And I think he just materially makes that lineup better than whoever they would have in there instead of him if he were out for some reason. So yeah, I think he's sort of a deal breaker play for me with this Pittsburgh stack, but I still think they're good overall. Like I like Pittsburgh a lot. They tend to let down sometimes. But when they do go right, they go right often at very low ownership. And I think this could be a spot. It's not a bad hitting park, a park that's given up more power on the year, and not really a park downgrade for Pittsburgh either. So I think it could be a spot versus Suarez where they could make something happen.
I feel like they're always overpriced, at least on DraftKings and fantasy draft, it seems like. And so I just never get to them. They're always like anti-optimizer play range because they have these nice implied totals. 5 is not bad at all. It's just hard to get to them when there's 3 that are 7.5 or higher. So
yeah, I agree. I think just on on a slate where now we know money is probably not an object for a lot of people, I did want to get some Pittsburgh in there, and I'm just going to be above the field on them by a little bit, but not going crazy because it doesn't take much. There's nobody owned over 10% in that entire lineup, it looks like.
Yeah.
Besides Mitch Keller. Let's see who else you're getting in cores, Jake, because we have Arizona and Colorado both have big team totals. Obviously going to have to pay a premium for both sides here. But and again, we talked about Josh Rojas, who's in the lineup for Arizona earlier, and how he could change things a little bit there. But which are you getting more of out of Colorado and Arizona?
Right now I'm getting a little bit more Colorado. I would expect that to hold true, but it's pretty close. I mean, you look at actually, I don't have the updated top stack tool. Let me put that in here quick because I know Arizona earlier today was a team that was undervalued on the last update. They were a little bit undervalued. They had about an 18% chance of being the top stack, whereas a 16% ownership share. Now with the other game out, I wonder if that's changed at all. But I don't know. I mean, I like both teams. They're going to be probably my second and third highest owned stacks, the Yankees being my first. And just not worried at all about Merrill Kelly or Peter Lambert missing bats. You throw in the Coors element, of course, and you just got really awesome stacks on both sides. Just the only thing with Arizona is the Arizona's actually got almost a 20% chance of being the top stack right now. Wow, I didn't even see that coming, but one of the most undervalued teams on the slate besides the Yankees, who are getting less ownership than Coors right now.
Yeah, I don't mind Arizona. I mean, like, again, I do think that them having no Peralta in there makes them a bit less appealing, and then having Josh Rojas instead, just because you can't have Rojas. Like, I really would like to have Rojas, and I'm just not allowed. I'm being oppressed by the man from getting my Rojas on my lineups tonight. So I think in that respect, I might favor Colorado, but I like the top stacks tool is a valuable thing. And also one of our best resources we have, if you get that Osmo Plus membership, is go right now and use that promo code live before lock to get in there and get yourself your own little top stacks tool look, because it is one of the better ones we have. Yeah, I think overall, I would favor Colorado a little bit just because of that, but the ownership is so high on Colorado now, and a guy like Dyson is hitting leadoff for Arizona. He's going to be pretty low owned, and he's getting that lefty spot versus Lambert, who's again given up a 290 ISO on the year almost. To left-handed batters. Dyson, not a great power hitter, but certainly somebody who could do damage in that leadoff spot. So I think getting him in there, that's one approach that'll get you less ownership right away.
Yeah, you could still make Arizona work pretty easily. It's not like they're unstackable, but it does suck that you've only got 7 hitters to choose from now. I do like that there's kind of some mispriced guys and some not great hitters despite the run total, because that's going to decrease the ownership on Arizona stacks like Carson Kelly and Ahmed being righty here for 4,300. So like the obvious parts are, of course, Lamb and Escobar and Marte, but you mentioned Dyson getting a little bit lower ownership as well. So Arizona still certainly appealing despite the Rojas situation.
And I guess if you were going to try to not have either core, or I guess the Coors game at all in there, who would be the one-offs you'd want the most on each side? I guess if somebody were to try to capture that production without going to the full stack.
I really like Arenado. Murphy is 4,400, so he's 4,400 batting third in Coors against Merrill Kelly. So he's awesome. And then on the other side, I really like Escobar for 5,500 if you can afford that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's Escobar would be the one that jumps out to me too. I like that spot for him. Good power hitter. Christian Walker too, I know has had a lot of success at Coors. Not something we look at specifically generally because you want to look at that longer term sample size. But I could see talking yourself in the Walker too at a cheaper price than that top three, 4,900 compared to guys in the mid fives for everybody else in that top three of Arizona. So I think there's a logic. Jake Lamb too, I wouldn't hate price wise. I think he's that Murphy tier. If you went with Lamb and Murphy and they happen to like hit a grand slam and they captured that production, that would be lesser owned and also pretty cheap.
Lamb,
just a thought.
Oh, okay, yeah. Fair enough. I'd like a grand slam as well.
Jake, if you could target just grand slams on the slate, I think you'll be doing well.
Yeah, although you might only get like one of them, so maybe you
Sure.
want to target like 2-run home runs and solo shots too.
I guess if you want to expand that could be logical. Are you getting any Boston going against Plesac? We talked about him. Neither of us too impressed. We both kind of think he could be due for some regression. And the Red Sox have been killing right-handed pitching on the year, getting 5.3 implied runs, which not the best for them, but still a decent total. What are you getting there? Because they're really not too owned either.
Yeah, I like Boston going up against Plesac. I mean, if you don't take one of these top three options, you're going to be different in some way or the other. So Boston's another team that's coming in a little bit undervalued right now on the top stack tool. So yeah, they're definitely appealing at first look. The only thing wrong with them is that they don't provide as much value as some of the other teams at the top, and that's why you're seeing their ownership drop, but more of an anti-optimizer play because they do have a good implied total, 5.8 right now, but just kind of in that next tier. So yeah, I like Boston. I'm definitely going to get to a bunch of their hitters as 2-mans and 3-mans, especially like Betts and JD and all the regular guys, Benintendi as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I just think whenever you get the Yankees, you talk about too, just you're stacking them up every night. I think Boston, even though they have not quite been as hot of a hitting team as the Yankees are, they are a team whenever you're getting them at less ownership and a pitcher who you're not terribly impressed by, it's usually a good time to go to them and just try to get some exposure in there. So I would say that is something that, this is so strange. Whatever's going on in the YouTube chat. I'm just going to mute that.
Yeah.
Like that's clearly somebody who's a troll because nobody would care that much to do that.
Yeah, that's funny stuff. We're big time
either
now,
way.
though. We're big time. That's fine.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter to me. It's just I think we know who that might be. Somebody who Josh has made an enemy of, I think would be my guess. But either way, I think Boston always worth going to on a day like this where people just aren't on them that much. So that's the logic in going there. Let's go to Cincinnati and Washington because we haven't talked about that side of the equation too much here. Eric Fetty was projected to have more ownership on him today. That's come down to a more reasonable amount. So I think going to Cincinnati is leverage, not quite as appealing. But I still do like the spot. I guess the one caveat going against Fetty is he doesn't give up a ton of power. A 186 ISO overall, but the fly ball rate's pretty low. The home run rate's pretty low. His strikeout rate also pretty low. Just a 13% strikeout rate on the year. So there is some merit in going there, but I really didn't land on a ton of Cincinnati, even though I liked them in the morning, and Washington as well. I kind of like going with lefties against DeSclafani, but no Soto in there. We talked about it before. Matt Adams, really the only lefty with appreciable power in there going against DeSclafani's one weakness. So I don't have much of these guys, Jake, but what about you in this game in Washington?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have much against DeSclafani. You're really only targeting him with lefty power, and I'm not keen on the Nats stack here. The Reds are a little bit more affordable, but they're coming in as a stack that's being quite a bit overvalued right now. Yeah, actually these are the two teams that are the most overvalued, at least on DraftKings. FanDuel as well, it looks like. So I'm not super crazy about Cincinnati and Washington. They're good values, but everyone knows that. So gonna try to stick to full stacks elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I wanted more of them, and I think the way the slate has shaken out, it's giving me just a bit interest overall, or a bit less interest overall. But I still think it's a spot on paper where it doesn't look too bad, and could have something that's valuable there. But the ownership is a little bit scary relative to their chance of being a top stack.
For sure.
This YouTube, also the YouTube chat is now like filtering stuff, and some of them aren't even bad things.
I saw that. I don't know what that's
like. Why is that? I don't know. Well, it's somebody in either or it got censored for some reason, but we're not going to answer it either way, I guess. but still, that's the filtering might be a little aggressive on there. So if your chats are getting eaten, it's not us. It's just the YouTube chat thing is now kind of spamming some stuff more aggressively for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about, but I guess it's maybe helpful sometimes.
Any Texas in Toronto for you? Because that is a game that has some decent implied totals. We also have some power in that park allowed overall, an open roof there in Toronto as well, and two pitchers who also aren't too good, even though we do have some Brock Stewart interest, as we mentioned earlier. Not a stellar bullpen for Toronto. And Hirado, a guy whose flaws we know overall, even though he does tend to limit production better than people realize, still not a guy I'd be afraid of. Getting any Texas or Toronto sack-wise?
Right now, I'm really not. I'm getting to Danny Santana. He's like the one-off I'm getting a good amount of. But like Toronto's another one that they're cheap, but I'm just trying to spend up with as many bats as possible tonight. So they're kind of being left by the wayside for me tonight as I try to get to Colorado and the Yankees and Arizona. One quick note, looking through some of my exposures here, I'm getting a lot of Nestor Cortez just because those guys all grade out similarly, the 4K pitchers, but he's just being owned about a third as much as what's his name, Pruitt, and about half as owned as Stewart right now. So he's becoming more and more appealing as the ownership gets farther apart.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair. We talked about our approach with that earlier, where I think just splitting the cheap pitchers does make sense, and also, goddamn it, Josh did get a home run yesterday. Oh, all right, well.
Did he? Oh, he hit Suarez, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna give him. I'm gonna give him a thumbs down emoji anyway. just because I don't support it, even if it did occur. All right, let's see. I'm with you on that. I think Toronto does have some theoretical upside. Hirado just seems like a dam that's on the cusp of bursting at any time because he hasn't given up a ton of power, but the isolated power has been there. I mean, still a 178 ISO overall, getting barreled at a 9% rate, which is pretty high as well. But the results haven't been there in terms of the hitters against him. So I think it could be a day to break because we do have these guys in Toronto's lineup. I mean, Guerrero is a better hitter versus righties. Smoke also better versus righties. Biggio, I mean, pretty comparable versus both sides. Bichette's been raking. So I don't hate the idea of going to Toronto. I also got some Texas just because I guess Stewart's going to have ownership now. I guess there's like a leverage play against him. I don't hate it, I guess. I'm not terribly excited ever getting Texas at this point, but how are you feeling about them going against Stewart?
I don't mind Texas. I mean, like I mentioned, I'm getting to Santana. I'm getting to a few Texas mini stacks, but going up against Stewart, I don't think Stewart is anything special. And you've got a good implied total here again. I believe the roof is open. Oh, I'm sorry, the roof is closed in Toronto. So that just goes to show what Vegas thinks of these teams. And actually, looking at some other sites right now, Alex has Texas projected higher than their implied totals elsewhere. So that's also something I like to look at to see which teams he's higher on than just like the general public. So it would be Texas if I was going to one of these teams.
Yeah, I got a little bit more of them, I guess, because of those projections. And yeah, the projections for them do look pretty good. So, I have some Texas today, more than I anticipated earlier in the day. And I think that's not a terrible place to go because they are also not very highly owned, but they're projecting pretty well. They could be a spot to go to. Actually, how do they shake out in the top stack store?
Texas?
Yeah.
Let's see here. They are about as owned as they should be. They're technically a little bit under-owned, but they are certainly a play. Like if I looked at the top stack tool and I like Texas, I wouldn't come off Texas for any reason after seeing it. In fact, they have a good value rating as well.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And yeah, it looks like they're projected to be a better value or have a better chance to be a value today. Mm-hmm. Uncle DFS saying, so whatever, pretty much just hedge it. Seems everyone has warts. Yeah, I mean, look, taking a stance today certainly can be an approach that works if you do nail that stance. Like if you really believe that Nestor Cortez is the best pitcher and people are going to be on Pruitt and Brock Stewart, like I really don't fault it. I don't know, Jake. I don't know if I get the sense you're on the same page as me. I don't see an obvious thing here. Really, my obvious thing was trying to get some pirate stacks in there, which is now getting worse by the minute because we're a few minutes away from lock, and I still don't know who's in the lineup. But I've been trying to differentiate on the edges more than I am at the main parts of my lineups. What are you doing? And I guess, is there an edge that you see that you would be more comfortable kind of going at high ownership?
Just like any edge on the slate.
Yeah, like anything in particular, like, or are you just going with a straight, like, I'll have this guy and I'll have the hedge against him?
I'm not like stacking all that much against these cheap pitchers. I'm just playing like being contrarian within the chalky stack. So like I'm taking the Mike Fords in like, and I'm going overweight on them quite a bit and going more with the field on guys like Judge and Blackburn and Arenado and Story. Like those are the great parts of the stack. But the way you win is by getting the low ownership guys within the chalky stack. It feels like that's oftentimes how I win when I do. So I'm just getting contrarian within the chalky plays. Like everyone knows Lucchesi is the best play on the slate, but sure, he could also get blown up against Tampa here. Like they're a team that does have some power, even though this lineup is not super favorable. So I guess if I was going with a super strong stand against someone, it might be a stack against Lucchesi.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about earlier, which I do think has some merit because the top six, once again, everybody over a 100 WRC plus in Tampa Bay's top six. And even though they're not great power overall, then that bottom of the order is pretty bad with Kiermaier, Adames, and then Diego Castillo, who will be yielding to Austin Pruitt, I guess, at some point at the in the bottom of the batting order there. You do have the top guys do have some power. I mean, you have Darno's actually up to a 286 ISO versus lefties, which is shocking given how bad he was in his previous stints. Aguilar as well, who Jake mentioned earlier, really cheap 200 ISO. Obviously, El Garcia 196 ISO versus a lefty. Like I think it's not a great park for it, but I think Tampa Bay could get it done, and it's not one to have a ton of though because nobody's going to be on it. But it's leverage. It is leverage, honestly, at this size. So why not?
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm putting in my DK lineups right now. Wow, just all the Yankees and all the Rockies and Diamondbacks. Like
Nothing surprising in there for you?
Not really. I got to below the field on Pruitt, which I did not think I would be at coming into the show. So it's kind of a weird slate. Like I knew the bats I would be on, but since the ownership for the pitching changed so much, I've kind of adapted and flipped it on its head and gone with more Nestor Cortez than Brock and Pruitt.
Yeah, and I think that's logical. I mean, the Baltimore is going to give you some strikeouts. Like I think that's one of the approaches that I find appealing. And we're assuming he's going to play, but which might be a big assumption to have, I guess. But I think in terms of the strikeout stuff, he's got a 22.5% K rate. Those guys were all in the 17% range. I think that alone gives him some justification going to Nestor Cortez.
Yeah, always fun when one of your highest exposed pitchers, you don't know for sure if they're going to play. So been bitten by it before. I'm sure it'll happen again, but hopefully not tonight.
That is fair. Are you doing FanDuel tonight?
Yeah, I'm about to upload. Actually, I'm going to be cutting it close with FanDuel. Let's see what I got here. I think my lineups are done. Yeah, okay, those are done. So I'm going to grade those out really quick and see what I get here. So
I guess while you're doing that, Sean in the YouTube chat is asking, Jay, could you share any insight into how you filter your crunch lineups in Excel? Obviously, whatever you're comfortable with giving, but how would you put Sean on the right path?
No, so I've honestly just learned a lot from the videos. So if you, the free stuff we've done, actually, there's a lot of good stuff that Alex talks about in there. Like, one of the things is like, I grade on correlation. So a 5-3 stack is a higher grade for the correlation than like a 5-2 or a 5 naked because if the players are more correlated against each other, that's better for your, or with each other, that's better for your lineup. I have a leverage grade as well. You can do that in two ways. You can get the average of the ownerships going against that player, that pitcher, or you can sum it all up. Alex talks about that in one of the articles as well. I can't remember which one it is, but if you go on the Learn DFS section, you can actually learn a lot about all this stuff that I'm talking about. And then, of course, I have projection, and then I do some lineups where I am prioritizing hitters and some where I'm more prioritizing pitchers, like more just regular projections and kind of letting it run to get a good mixture of different lineups within my portfolio.
Yeah,
and then
that makes sense.
Did I mention ownership? I think I mentioned ownership.
Yeah, you said that in your leverage. Yeah, I mean, so like Jake and I think we're both calculating it the same way now, but like we just use the reverse of the ownership projections we have on the site. So if you have a Your hitters, you're going with whatever the pitcher's ownership is, and then if you have your pitchers, you have whatever the team stack ownership is going against them, and then you could kind of make a number out of that to find your leverage score.
I think projection and ownership are obviously the number one things you want to look at. Leverage, I don't think is as necessary, especially if you're starting out. But you can also do a lot of this stuff in Fantasy Cruncher. It doesn't necessarily have to be done, outside of it. So I don't know. It's super interesting, and you get a lot of different stuff that you didn't think you would get when you start doing stuff like this.
Darth Bane asking either or question on the premium Slack, which we'll answer. We are locked right now, by the way, but he was going Cortez or Suarez on FanDuel. First of all, for either ors in general, just especially because you're a premium member, just check Osmos projections because that's always going to be what our answer is anyway. But I would say, I'll pull it up and double check. But let's see, Suarez we have at, this is ownership, damn it. Suarez we have at 3.68 value. And then Cortez, we have at 2.6. So yeah, for FanDuel, it looks like it would be Suarez by a pretty decent swath. But salary wise too, especially on FanDuel, yeah, definitely go to Suarez. That's not even a debate, I think.
Suarez and who?
And Nestor Cortez.
Yeah. I don't think Cortez is necessary. Don't on FanDuel. Don't he has no chance at the quality start. He's a DraftKings play only. Cortez, IMO.
Yeah. I don't really believe in Suarez much because again, I do think the Pirates are in a pretty decent spot, but still you have to take the starter just for the chance at a quality start. And I agree. I don't see any reason why you go to Cortez on FanDuel.
Yeah. So once again, I was kind of going through my stuff really quick as I was trying to put lineups in, but correlation, projection, ownership, you can add in leverage in there somehow if you figure out a way to do that effectively. Free Jake. I'm not being held captive, but yeah, you can increase the randomness to make your crunch go faster if you're up against the time crunch. So Rob's Boston says that in YouTube chat. So that's actually a good way to do it. But watch those videos on the site. They are under the section Learn DFS, and then Fantasy Cruncher MLB Guide, I believe, is where all those videos are under. Chris Randone and Alex Baker, Osimo, did those, and you guys should all check those out if you're trying to get acclimated to Fantasy Cruncher.
Yep, so there you go. So check that out. They're on the YouTube channels Jake mentioned. I think you can also find them all in one article on the site too. If you go into the Learn DFS section. Also, apparently Jesse Winker hit a home run to start the game off. So
let's see if I had any of this clown.
I do. I know I have some, so I'm looking forward to seeing that one or two lineups soar up. Oh, three Winkers. Good for me.
I had 5%, so under the field on DK at least.
I've actually got him as a one-off in one lineup somehow. So way to go, leverage score.
There you go. That's the kind of thing you get sometimes. So
the system works. All right, guys. Well, hit that like button before you go. It's been a real harrowing Monday show. I feel like the Monday shows are usually pretty straightforward. Not usually on live before lock on Mondays. And this has been a real pain in the ass.
Yeah, dude. These lineups not coming in on Mondays have been a thing. So it's usually Josh and I. We're always constantly complaining about how we never get the lineups, like the timing right. And so at least Pittsburgh's didn't come in 5 minutes before lock, and I had to recrunch and try to figure that out. But now we're all on the same page, I suppose. But I don't have much Pittsburgh at all anyways.
Well, yeah, my Pittsburgh, I'll have to pay attention, I guess, and wait to see when they put it out. Thanks, Pittsburgh. But for everybody else, hope you enjoy the rest of your night. If you want to play the night slate, because this main slate is going to be a real harrowing situation for a lot of people involved, make sure you use that promo code live before lock. Our management team has been really thriving in the night slate for as long as I've been on board here, as long as Jake and I have both been on board across a variety of sports. And because the ownership projections make such a difference in the night slates, you go check it out now. Use that promo code live before lock for half off your first month of Osmo Plus and get a real big edge on the field by using night slate ownership projections, as well as a night slate top stacks tool. All those tools are available for you now for every single slate. So go check it out. Use that promo code live before lock. And Jake, anything you want to plug for this week?
Let's see here. I don't know. I just do the cheat sheets every day, and I'll be on. Let's see, not tomorrow. Chris Randone and Josh will be on tomorrow. It'll be me and you again on Wednesday. Me and you again on Thursday, and then me and you again on Friday as well.
Not Friday.
Me and Josh.
It's you and Josh on Friday.
Yeah.
So Wednesday, actually, I get 2 live before locks because I get to do the early one.
Oh yeah, cool. That'll be cool. But no, I mean just the normal stuff. You'll be seeing a lot of me in the next couple weeks. So enjoy, I guess.
There'll be a lot of us on the channel, so give us some support. This is the dog days of summer right now, and we need all the support we can, honestly, because it's going to be real harrowing for us, but we're going to have a lot of fun talking about a bunch of games for you guys. So we appreciate you all, and of course, go to fantasydraft.com right now and use that promo code OSMO for your first 7 days on there, rake free, up to $1,000 in rake free entries. So go to fantasydraft.com right now, support our partners there, and it's a great site to play if you're new to DFS, because there's just less money going around, less really high-end smart money going around. So go check it out now. Get your best chance at winning some rake-free money. And you get all the 100% of the winnings there. Go to the winners. So that's what you want from your DFS site. So go check them out. We'll be back tomorrow with some more content. Subscribe and hit that notification bell. And we'll see you guys again soon. Hope you guys all survive tonight. Good luck.